All right, A through K group. Hope you're doing well today. I kind of mentioned yesterday in class that we were going to be looking more at the Louisiana Purchase. We did the reading yesterday, the New Zealand reading, and we're going to focus a little bit more today on what's the reaction to this purchase. So we're going to look at the Federalist Party, which is the party that Jefferson is not a part of. He's a Democratic Republican. We're going to look at how they react to the Louisiana Purchase. We're going to be doing it in two parts. Part A will be done today while you're working online. Part B will be done tomorrow when you're back in class. So the timeline here is more or less just to kind of give you more indication about what leads to this purchase. And the first thing I want you to point out here is the fact that the U.S. Goes to France to try to buy the city of New Orleans and the surrounding area, which is called West Florida. They try to buy this from France. And the real reason is because they want to be able to have full access to the city for trade. Because as the country grows in size and we start moving west, it's going to be more challenging for farmers who live further west from the Atlantic coast to sell their goods if they can't find a suitable place like a trade city, like a port city, which New Orleans is. So they are going to go there to try to buy the city, but they don't realize that due to a revolution in Haiti, which is a country in the Caribbean, Napoleon's kind of abandoning his idea of having a large amount of territory in North America. Napoleon is the leader of France. And so what happens is the United States gets to be able to buy all of the territory of Louisiana, which is 828,000 square miles, for about $15 million. And it's really one of this once in a lifetime purchases. Now, with that said, there's a lot of question marks about can we even buy this, because there's nothing in the Constitution that says we can. But we're going to talk more about that at a later date. Let's focus now on, okay, this purchase of land has been approved. Now we need to look at how Federalists are reacting to it. Now, this is a name we should recognize, Alexander Hamilton. He's a prominent name that we have discussed. And we're looking at a statement that he makes. It's always important to look for the source of the primary source that you're looking at. This is something that he writes July of 1803, so kind of in the midst of this purchase. And the New York Evening Post, which is a prominent Federalist newspaper. So he's trying to write this article to convince people that this is not a good idea, okay? So we're going to read through this together, and we're going to kind of pause and look at what the significance here of what he's trying to say, okay? So Hamilton says, the purchase of New Orleans is essential to the peace and prosperity of our Western country and opens a free and valuable market to our commercial states. When you see the word essential, that means this is a good thing. So Hamilton's pointing out that yes, it's a good thing that we have bought this territory or bought the city of New Orleans, because people who live in what's called the Western country, which is basically like where we are at the time in the Indiana territory. Remember, at the West at that time is everything up to the Mississippi River. Those people need to have a good place to sell their goods and their crops. So he thinks this is a good idea. So this is a plus, all right? But it's going to quickly shift to, okay, New Orleans is a good idea, but everything else about this purchase is bad, and here's why. So this purchase will probably make it seem like Mr. Jefferson, that's President Thomas Jefferson, is brilliant. Any man, however, who possesses any amount of intelligence will easily see that the purchase is the result of lucky coincidences and unexpected circumstances, and not the result of any wise or thoughtful actions on the part of Jefferson's administration. So, wow. Hamilton's not really holding back on saying that basically Jefferson got lucky. This is not something where Jefferson had to be extra smart or use his intelligence or intellect as the president or had to negotiate anything. It's basically it fell in his lap. France was in a bind. They don't want to try to defend that territory anymore. And honestly, they would rather sell it and get the money so that Napoleon can fight his war with Britain, Napoleon, the leader of France. So he's not one being a big rival of Jefferson, he's not one to praise Jefferson. So that's not something he's going to be big on. But in all honesty, this is what we need to focus on the most, these last two statements here, okay? So he says, as to the vast region west of the Mississippi, that's the river, it is a wilderness with numerous tribes of Indians. So, and honestly, that's not too surprising because it's an area that has not really been settled yet. It's wilderness. Wilderness is unsettled, undeveloped. And when we consider the present territory, that means what we're currently occupying, which is the area from the Atlantic Ocean to the Mississippi, the present territory of the United States, and that not 1/16th, we're talking about a fraction here. So we're talking about 1/16th, sorry for my poor penmanship there, that not 1/16th is yet under occupation. The possibility that this new purchase will be a place of actual settlement seems unlikely. So he's basically saying, in his mind, we've only settled a fraction of the land that we own. Now, 1/16th is probably a little bit of an exaggeration because our population is ever increasing. We have added new states. We've added areas that are going to become new states. You know, Ohio is going to become a state in 1803. So we're going to have 16 states, and they're forming other territories to eventually become states. So I think this is a little bit of an exaggeration, but what Hamilton's trying to do is he's not trying to convince people that this is a good idea. He's actually trying to convince people this is a bad idea, all right? Now, with that said, this last paragraph is the most important thing for us to understand why Hamilton's concerned. If our own citizens do eventually settle this new land, it would weaken our country and central government. On the whole, that means, in conclusion, overall, we can honestly say that this purchase is at best extremely problematic. Now, Hamilton, we know as a Federalist, wants a strong central government. So whatever he sees in this purchase is something that would weaken the central government. That's a bad thing for a Federalist. But we need to think to ourselves, why and how would this purchase, enlarging the size of the country, weaken the central government? Well, let's think about this. If people continue to move west, where they're living relative to the capital in Washington, D.C., is going to be further and further away. And so Hamilton's concerned that as people move further and further west, it's one, harder to defend them and provide for their safety, but two, it's going to be very difficult to enforce laws. Because if people are further away from the central government, and again, this is a time where we have very primitive technology, very primitive communication, how is the government going to be ensuring that those people who live way out west beyond the Mississippi River are going to follow the rules and laws? Okay, so Hamilton's not a big fan of this purchase overall, and it really comes down to the fact that the country is growing in size and will have a greater difficulty in enforcing decisions, you know, following the Constitution, and this would weaken the central government. And again, he as a Federalist is not a big fan of that, okay? So this is gonna be something that we're gonna continue tomorrow in class, but the exit ticket for today is for you to focus on answering questions on what I've discussed here with document A. You can go back to this video as many times as you need, but I do want you to put in a good effort in understanding why this Louisiana purchase is not something that everybody thinks is great. So please continue, complete today's exit ticket, and I will see you back in class tomorrow, and we will discuss this and the rest of this document.